Death of a Boar by M.C. Beaton. Read by Graeme Malcolm.
For Alistair and Amanda Locke of Inverness, with affection. Chapter 1. No man but a blockhead ever wrote, except for money. Samuel Johnson. There used to be quite a lot going on in a Highland village during the long, dark winter months. There was a ceilidh every week where the locals danced or performed, singing the old songs or reciting poetry. Often there was a sewing circle with its attendant gossip, the Mothers' Union meetings, the Girl Guides and Boy Scouts classes, and the weekly film show in the village hall. But with the advent of television and videos, people often preferred to stay cosily indoors, being amused by often violent films with heroines with high cheekbones, collagen-enhanced lips, and heels so high it made ankles comfortably ending in slippered feet just ache to look at them. Therefore, when Hamish Macbeth, police constable of Lochdubh, heard that a newcomer, John Heppel, was planning to hold a series of writers' classes in the village hall, he set out to dissuade him. As he said to his fisherman friend Archie MacLean, "I don't want to see the poor wee man humiliated when nobody turns up." Hamish had seen a poster in Patel's general store. "Do you want to be a famous writer? Famous writer John Heppel will help you become one." The first meeting was scheduled for the following week on a Wednesday evening at 7:30. Hamish knew that on that evening, Petticoat Cops were showing at just that time, a cop series set in L.A. with three leggy blondes with large lips, high busts, and an amazing skill with firearms and kung fu. He did not know anyone in Lochdubh who would risk missing the latest episode, except perhaps himself. So, on one wet, black evening with a gusty gale blowing in from the Atlantic and ragged clouds ripping across the sky, Hamish got into the police Land Rover and set out for John's cottage, which was out on the moors above the village of Knothen. Hamish was feeling lonely. His affair with the local reporter, Elspeth Grant, had come to an abrupt halt. She had been offered a job on a Glasgow newspaper and had asked him bluntly if he meant to marry her. And Hamish had dithered. Then he had said he'd think about it, and by the time he had got around to really considering the idea, Elspeth had accepted the job and left. He wondered gloomily whether he was cut out to live with anyone, for his first feeling on hearing the news that she had gone was one of relief. He wondered at first why John had not decided to hold his classes in Knothen, but then reflected that Knothen was a sour town and specialised in ostracising newcomers. Sergeant McGregor, who had policed Knothen for years, had retired, and the village and surrounding area had been added on to Hamish's already extensive beat. Village police stations were being closed down all over the place, and Hamish had not felt strong enough to protest at the extra work in case he lost his beloved home in the police station in Lochdubh. Hamish had never met John Heppel. Normally he would have made a courtesy call, but an irritating series of burglaries over in Brakey had to be solved, and somehow the man's arrival in the Highlands had gone out of his mind. Much as he loved Sutherland and could not consider living anywhere else, Hamish knew that newcomers often relocated to the far north of Scotland through misguided romanticism. Writers or painters imagined that the solitude and wild scenery would inspire them, but usually it was the very long, dark winters that finally defeated them. He drove through Knothen, bleak and rain-swept under the orange glare of sodium lights and up onto the moors. The heathery track leading to John's cottage had a pokerwork sign pointing the way. It said, "Writer's Folly." Hamish drove along the track and parked outside the low whitewashed cottage that was John's home. Hamish chided himself for not phoning first. He rapped on the door and waited while the rising gale whipped at his oilskin coat. A small man opened the door and stared up at the tall policeman. "I'm Police Constable Hamish Macbeth from Lochdubh," said Hamish. "Might I be having a wee word with you?" "Come in." Hamish followed him into a living room lined with books. A computer stood on a table by the window. Peat smouldered on the open fire. Over the fireplace hung a large framed photograph of the author accepting a plaque. "You have interrupted my muse," said John, and gave a great hee-haw sort of laugh. He was only a little over 5 feet tall, bespectacled, with thinning grey hair, the strands combed over a balding scalp. His eyes were large and brown.